For the hamstring stretch with lower abdominal activation and upper body tension, we're going to grab a lighter kettlebell, hooking the thumbs through the horns, holding the ball of the kettlebell like a bowl of soup above the sternum initially. Don't want to go too heavy here because we're going to get 5 breaths under tension, so pick the right weight for you. We're going to keep a slight bend in the elbows. I'm going to take my feet as straight as I can up to the ceiling, so palms of the feet parallel to the ceiling if possible. If you're here, that's okay. Just make sure you don't feel the low back lift up off the ground. If you can't do that, then you can kind of do some pumps. Instead of holding them here, you can go in and out of the stretch as long as you can keep it out of the low back. But if you can, we'll keep straight legs roughly. Light bend in the knees, but palms of the feet striving for parallel to the ceiling. Heels are about hip width apart, and we want to feel the abdomen pulling the legs towards us and the quads, front of the legs, squeezing to keep the legs straight. From this position, we're going to reach overhead so we get a good deal of tension, something that we can manage for 5 breaths. We're going to feel it kind of pick that tailbone up to activate the low abdomen, and we're going to breathe big into the waistline on a nasal inhale. You should feel the shape kind of like I am pretty quickly. And exhale, fog a mirror from the back of the throat. Get all your air out, squeeze those quads, stretch the hamstrings. 3 more. Exhale, come out and take a rest. For the contralateral hamstring bridge, I'm going to load with a little bit of tension. I've got an 8 kg kettlebell. I'm doing thumbs through the horns, holding the bell like a bowl of soup, right above the sternum with my elbows out to the sides a little bit, creating a little bit of an orb or a sphere with my arms and chest. From this position, this would be a traditional bridge. This is our long bridge, so somewhere in between, feet about hip width apart, I'm going to lift my hips. Feel the hamstrings, feel the glutes, not the low back. Now the first thing I want to do is roll to one side, pushing a little more weight into my right foot. Head can rest or come up. So right now I've got a ton of weight in my right foot, left foot just a little. Kettlebell still pointing with the sternum and belt buckle here to the left, so I'm pushing into the back of my left shoulder, so that's the contralateral portion. And then I'm pulling with this leg, I'm pulling that right heel towards my left shoulder where I'm imprinting against the ground to get that hamstring fired up. I'm then turning belt buckle, sternum, kettlebell the same side so I can find, or turning them at the same time until I find this right-sided right shoulder imprint and the left foot taking more of the weight over here. Then I'm pulling with that heel just a bit to really fire up the hamstring, making sure I'm breathing here, and I'm going back and forth. Again, belt buckle, sternum, kettlebell all move at one time to shift weight into the opposite foot. Then we pull traction in the hamstring and switch. We're going to do 5 per side here. So we just finished 1 per side. Good to exhale on the pull at the end or the traction at the end, finding that hamstring contraction. Keep the hips high, mind return to sag. One more each side. Keep the hips up. The hips are always going to try to sag down. Keep them up so we can feel those hamstrings and a little bit of glutes at all times. Again, try not to let this sneak up into the low back. If it does, reach out and see what's going on. I'll help you figure it out. For the sideline glute medius raise, you'll lay with your back about 1/2 foot away from the wall. I'm not right on it, but I'm not too far away either. From this position, I'm going to rest my head on my arm or a yoga block or on the floor if that's comfortable. And I'm going to set my ribs and pelvis first and foremost. Straight legs stacked, just kind of relaxed. I want the top of my pelvic bone down on the floor. I don't want it spilling when I raise and mushing into the ground. So I want to keep this up. So grab that bony part of your pelvis, hold it up, grab the ribs, hold it up. You want to be able to run a few Hot Wheels between your side and the floor here. Now from that position, with this all in line, you should feel some tension here. You should feel kind of like a small little side plank. Now from that position, you're gonna let your top leg rotate down or kneecap point down to the floor. If it had a face on the kneecap, you'd want it to be looking down at the floor. Now from that position, we're gonna lift it as high as we can, keeping the pelvic bone and the rib cage up, and you should feel the dimple of the glute start to fire. Now from that position, I'm gonna kick back, heel into the wall, and I'm gonna push through like I wanted to jam it through the wall. So the dimple of the butt cheek's nice and burnt up. I'm lifted through here and here, and I'm gonna breathe for 5 deep breaths. In through the nose, down into the waistline, out through the mouth, exhaling, getting all that air out like I'm fogging a mirror. Lots of shaking. Keep the heel high. Press it back. Knee points down if it can. A little higher if you got it. One more. And relax. Really difficult. If you can't work up to 5 breaths, try 3. And again, if you feel like the knees want to point to the ceiling, over time you're going to get more and more internal rotation without that pelvic bone mushing into the floor. Now let that relax and rest, and then we're going to do 5 reps. We're going to inhale, lift, exhale, press for 5 rounds. So same setup through the trunk. Two more. Again, very difficult exercise. So once you've completed 5 breaths and 5 reps on one side, switch sides, do the same thing on the other side. Feel free to pause the video to get that done or listen to it again, but doing it on the other side. So for the long hip lift variations, instead of being at 90-90, I'm gonna push myself back a deal so that I am no longer knees right over the hips, but the knees are actually out in front of the hips a little bit. I'm gonna be pretty close together with my feet, about a running or walking width apart, and I'm going to make sure my low back is nice and squished into the floor. So I wanna keep my pelvis rounded a little bit, or the belt buckle tilted up to my sternum just a little. Not forcing it, jamming it back, just lightly squishing the kidneys into the ground behind the low back. Now from this position, we're gonna lift the hips till we feel the hamstrings. I'm just lifting about an inch, inch and a half here max. And I'm gonna take my hands down to the floor. I'm gonna push my shoulder, back of my arms and palms down into the ground for some stability here. I'm gonna do 5 marches here, and I'm going to do good synced breathing. So it's gonna look like this. I'm not gonna rotate the hips when I march, and I'm not gonna let my tailbone get any closer to the ground while I march. So pressing down. Pressurized audible exhales, nasal inhales. Once I've done 5 marches per side, I'm gonna bring one leg back and I'm gonna do my heels as far away from the wall as I can, slowly lower them back down. So I'm gonna do my heel raise and lower, or my ankle pumps, 5 per side, trying not to move through here, and still breathing. So the knee does move, but the hips do not. So notice I'm not moving through here, but I am moving through the knee. Ball of the big toe stays down. So again, 5 on this side, 5 on the other side after 5 marches each way. For the wall pogos, instead of knees over hips, I'm going to slide my hips out from under my knees a bit, and I'm going to go about walking or running gait width apart at the feet. I'm going to keep my low back smushed into the ground here until I lift the hips 1-2 inches here, like so. I'm going to bring one leg in towards the chest without rotating here. So again, a nice and belt buckle up to the sternum, not undone with the ribs, kind of pulling this together. Hips 1-1.5 inches away. Pull the leg back, and then I'm going to hop against the wall here, nice and quietly. I'm going to do 30 to 50 reps, depending on what feels comfortable, manageable. Fog the mirror exhales, nasal inhales. A lot harder than it looks. Then I'm going to switch sides, and I'm going to do 30 to 50 on the other side as well. I can add the hands pushing down to the floor to give me some stability up top. So I'm pushing down from the palms all the way up to the back of the shoulders. Quiet feet, trying to land in the exact same position I started in every step or every hop. All right, and rest.